Hello, hello, hello. Hi, ZX24Me, Uncle Lisa's Productions, K&R Destinations, Hitch Up and Tow. Hello, hello. I think Meant to Be is still going on over there. Hey, New Vision Security Services. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while. Caravanning with our, oh, here comes everybody. Caravanning with our Westies. Hello, hello. Uncle Lisa. I'm talking about the duck. K&R Destinations, New Vision Security Services. You are not first, Blake. He tried. He tried really hard. So I want to talk about something really. Hey, Journey via Lily's Lens. Oh, now that's interesting, Journey via Lily's Lens. Just make sure you cover with a towel. You know, if you need a towel, just ask. Somebody will hand you one. So before I get started on tonight's topic, I want to say a couple of things really quick. I want to talk about a couple of channels. Gina Payne, Van Life with Gina Payne, Bobs AdVanture, Daydream About Nice Things, Slow Momentum, New Horizons, Box Van D, of course. And there is a theme to these names I'm listing. These are channels that started where we all started and have worked their butt off to get where they are right now. I have seen these channels have the kindest, sweetest hearts. They are there to help other channels. They're giving, and they've worked their channels. They may have had a shout out from another channel. They may have had a video on another channel, whatever the case may be. But they took that and they ran with it, and they worked hard on their channels. And I am proud to call a lot of them my friends, and they are this community. And there's a lot of really, really good in this community. And there's a lot of people that, even though they don't talk about it, are suffering and have a lot of things going on in their lives. So I just want to take a moment to remind everyone to be kind. We never know what's going on in someone else's life. And that we have a really amazing community that I think we're all pretty proud to be a part of. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I felt like I needed to say something like that today. And I hope you all enjoy what we have coming next, which is going to get deep and crazy. And I'm going to bring up a special guest to help me talk about this because they have a connection to this story. Oh, hold on. Before I do, sorry, there's a whole bunch of people that came in. I cannot get back through these names and be able to get on with the story. So I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for coming in tonight. And thank you, Meant to Be RVing, for the raid. And now I'm going to bring up our special guest. Are you ready down there? All right. Hello.
Hello. I'm glad to be here. Share another one of my crazinesses of my life that people I ran into.
Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. And thank you for telling me about this crazy true crime story. I had no idea. I can't believe I didn't have any idea, but I had no idea. So we're going to be discussing the Green River Killer. He's a serial killer named Gary Ridgway. And then do you want to tell us real quick how you are linked to how you know about this case?
Yeah, well, I mean, living up here in Washington, I knew about it from news stories or whatever, because they would always, especially before they caught him, every so often you'd see a news story about, them trying to find him. And I mean, you've done more of the research probably, but he did one more recently, and that's how they finally caught him. But one of the managers I had when I worked for Sears Auto Center, he was lead detective Tom on the Green River Killer case in the King County Sheriff Department, and so he was tracking this guy and shared some of the details with me, about how they knew that it was his and not a copycat killer or anything like that, because in the time frame that it was happening, there were other serial killers in the area, and then even I think even Ted Bundy and him crossed over at the same time, because Ted Bundy was actually from Tacoma as well. So there's a lot of people from up here.
Yeah, that was another crazy thing I found out, that like Ted Bundy was somehow maybe involved or didn't know if he was involved, and they were trying to figure all that out too. It's crazy. We're going to get into it. I have a lot of notes because I was just blown away. So I'm going to start with reading this, and then if you hear anything that might need corrected or that you have anything to add to it, let me know and I'll stop. But it says a lot of young women who worked the streets, they were prostitutes, started to go missing. There was a place in Seattle called the Strip, or Highway 99. It was a road filled with motels with hourly rentals, bars, and women down on their luck working the Strip. In 1982, a discovery was made in the nearby Green River. A man in a boat saw under the water what he thought was a mannequin. However, it turned out to be two bodies of two women. As police investigated the crime scene, they came across another victim on the bank. All three women had been picked up on the Strip by what the FBI dubbed an organized serial killer. So I guess I'll stop right there for a minute. So the first known thing was they found three bodies in one place. That blows me away.
Yeah, and that was just the start. I mean, I don't know the exact count, but I think it was close to 40 or over 40 women.
Yeah, I have that down here at the end. I think y'all will be shocked by how many he was able to do this with. And they said he was an organized serial killer because he knew how to move around and how to do things, and he didn't just have one body. There were three bodies. He would stack them up and wait to dump them all at one time. It was insane. And
he always changed his vehicle too. He was constantly changing his vehicle. That's one of the other things that kept him from getting them, because they'd say, be on the lookout for this vehicle, and he'd have it sold and already have a new vehicle by the time they were looking for that one.
Yeah. So the three victims that were originally found were a 16-year-old named Opal Mills, a 17-year-old named Cynthia Jean Hines, and a 31-year-old named Marcia Chapman. This was only the beginning of what would become a very long reign of terror that would not be solved quickly. By autumn of 1982, the bodies of 5 young women had been found in or along the sides of Seattle's Green River and had disappeared from the notorious Strip. The killer had only just begun. On September 15, 1982, 18-year-old Mary Bridget Meehan vanishes. She was 8.5 months pregnant, and her family was devastated. September 20th, 1982, 15-year-old Deborah Lorraine Esters disappears. Police still could not identify the killer. September 26, 1982, 16-year-old Linda Jane Rule disappears. Like all serial killers, he could sense vulnerability with his victims. He didn't take the streetwise women, but yet the younger women, the new girls to the street, who were broken and young. By the end of 1982, 15 young girls were missing or found dead. Some began to speculate that the police force was not investigating as hard because of the line of work these young women were in. Some believed it could be a police officer. This was not the case, however. April 30th, 1983, a young girl was spotted being taken from the Strip. She was at a restaurant on the Strip when her boyfriend went to use the restroom and came back. Maria was not there. He went to look on the Strip for her, and he realized she was in a truck ahead of him. He followed the truck, but lost track of the truck quickly. He went back and grabbed her family, and they started driving around looking everywhere for the truck. They found it in a quiet neighborhood parked outside of a home. The police spoke with the man at the home, and they said, I'm going to explain this part rather than read this, because this blows my mind. So the boyfriend of the girl who disappeared tracks down the truck. Her family tracks down the truck. They send the police up to the door and say, I know she's in there. She was just in the truck. The police go up to the door and they ask him, and the man says, no, it's just me here. The police just leave. They just leave. That part of the investigation, I'm blown away by.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of them just like...
They shouldn't have, but that wasn't the only time they could have gotten him. They questioned him another time too. So
yeah, and that's the other thing. They do question him another time. They questioned several different men. The next time that they questioned him, they did get a DNA swab. They were smart enough to get DNA swabs from all of the men that they believed could possibly be involved.
Yep.
But I just can't believe they drove away and they just didn't even look inside of his house or try to get a search warrant or anything.
You watch on 48 Hours how many stories you hear of that, where the police come and check and oh, it's fine, and then next thing you know, that person's gone. So it's not surprising. It's just when it ends up being this way, it's when you go, whoa, like they could have got him right there, you know?
Yeah. So that summer, hold on, let me go back up. That summer, 5 more girls went missing. In autumn, 5 more vanished. Winter and spring 1984, 4 more girls gone. They would discover the girls 3, 4, or 5 in one spot. He, like in the very first time that he did it, every time that he would discard of his victims, he would do it in numerous victims in one place. He would just drop them. By spring of 1984, he had killed more than 40 victims. Something suddenly changed, though, and the killings stopped. Many thought he was gone. In 1985, the man with the truck from earlier in the story, a painter, began dating 40-year-old divorced mother Judith. Judith described him as quiet, nice, always smiling and never angry, and loving country dancing when she first met him. She moved in within just months. When she moved in, there was no carpet. He said this was due to previous renters. In 1988, they married. Judith said she enjoyed 13 years of happy marriage, while most began to forget the Green River murders ever happened. In 2001, advances in DNA profiling allowed the police to take samples from the victims, including the young woman Martha, and compare it with men who had been questioned during the investigation. The DNA came back to a match, Gary Ridgway, the painter in the quiet house. 52-year-old Gary Ridgway, the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history. He would now be investigated in more than 4 dozen homicides. What was remarkable to the investigators was that Gary Ridgway was so normal, not scary, but crying just seems so normal. If you didn't know what he had done, you wouldn't even think it was him. The monster within him was well hidden. Gary Ridgway was born in 1949, the middle of 3 boys. He grew up with a mostly stay-at-home mother, and his father was a bus driver. His father would berate and point out prostitutes. Several times, Gary remembered his father leaving him in the truck while he went to have intercourse with prostitutes. During his school years, he was more inward than his brother. Ridgway admitted to being a bedwetter through his teen years. His mother was known to dress and present herself very provocatively. Ridgway admitted to having sexual feelings towards his mother and that he knew it wasn't okay. As Ridgway got older, he started fires and also lured a small boy into the bushes and stabbed him.
Mhm.
The boy nearly died. He told the boy he wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. No one was able to connect Ridgway to that incident. At 21, he married and joined the Navy. When he returned, he found his wife cheated and they divorced. He married his second wife and had a child. Their relationship deteriorated, and his second wife left him when their son was 5. This is when he began the frequent trips to the Strip. He claimed he became addicted to prostitutes. He was questioned in the Green River murders, even passed a lie detector test. He believed his own lies. When his wife Judith would visit him at the jail, he even had her convinced he didn't do it. When he was being questioned in 2001, he continued to pretend he was innocent. He had planned to use the defense he had sex with the prostitutes, but did not kill them. However, more DNA evidence surfaced tying him to at least 3 more victims. Ridgway then changed his story. He came in and told investigators he'd been lying and manipulating everyone and that he indeed killed them all. In 2003, when he admitted he was indeed the Green River serial killer who had eluded police for almost 2 decades, responsible for more than 4 dozen killings, he offered to tell the truth about his crimes in return for a life sentence since he was facing the death penalty. On behalf of the victims' families, he wanted to know the fate of the family members. Prosecution agreed to this. He came across as very meek and mild. He even had his child with him during some of the abductions. Because he came across this way, the women would assume he was safe. He preferred to take them to his house. Some would say no, and in that case, he would take them to a remote location where he had a truck with a truck camper, and he would convince them to go in. Once he got them in his bed or wherever they felt secure, and after he was done having sex with them, he would then choke them from behind with his forearm. He knew nothing about his victims except where he had dumped their bodies. That was something I found really interesting, because during the interviews with him and stuff, he didn't know their names. He didn't know if they were black or white. He didn't know how old they were. But they literally took him in a car and he drove them to each and every spot that he dumped them.
And you remember that in exact detail too, where exactly how many feet off the road or wherever it was. He could recall that. Yep.
And this is something with serial killers or true crime that I not enjoy, because I don't know how to put this, but I find very interesting, because you and our minds would never ever go that direction, but when you hear stories like this and you find out that a person had sex with this many women, he took this many women and met with them, but he doesn't remember a single thing except for how he buried their body, where he buried their body. He doesn't remember anything about them. It just blows me away. The difference in the way minds think. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to realize somebody that's a serial killer too, they dehumanize people. So that was never a person there for them anyway, to see in the first place, to remember.
That's very true. And that even gets a little more intense, as Uncle Lisa would say, a little further on in the story. We're almost done with the story. So he went as far as to pour battery acid on himself to cover scratches. He also admitted that even after killing them, he still felt rage, and in some occasions would try to hurt their deceased bodies even more. For example, he tried to light Linda Rule's hair on fire. He seemed through the interviews to try to blame all the women who had hurt him in his life for his actions now. He even spoke on going back several times to the deceased women and having intercourse with them. he spoke of all of this as if it was totally normal. That's something else I noticed in the interviews, and you and I were talking about this, Bob, how in his interviews he talks like he's just having a cup of coffee and talking about the weather when he's talking about what he's done to these women. This part is a little bit gross, so cover your ears if you don't want to hear this part. But when the police asked him if he would go back and visit the bodies, he admitted to going back and visiting the bodies and having intercourse with them until there was maggots and flies, and then that seemed to bother him and he would move on. And when they asked him why he would do that, he said because he didn't have to pay for the sex if he did that. Again, I'm blown away that somebody's brain thinks like that. And imagine he's in this interview and he's talking like he's talking about the weather, not like he's talking about this horrific crime.
Well, I would say that he was one of the ones that I would say is probably born that way, along with what his parents did. Because when he stabbed the kid and said, "I just want to feel like what it was to feel like to kill somebody," well, there's a sign right there that that person's not going to probably do good the rest of their life.
I agree, and that was something that was being debated in the articles and everything that I read. Was he born to be a killer, or did his childhood lead him in that direction? And a lot of what I was reading was saying that his mother dressed provocatively, and so he was attracted to his mother, and that caused him problems in his childhood, and that his mother shouldn't have dressed that way. And I got to thinking, like, I can't believe people are actually writing this and sort of giving him an excuse for his behavior, because it doesn't matter how his mom dressed. He should have never been attracted to his mother. That tells you right there something's wrong in his brain if that's the way he's thinking from a very young age. To blame the mother on the way she dressed for his actions just doesn't make sense to me at all.
No.
So this is going to kind of wrap it up here, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So it says, after killing around 60 girls from 1982 to 1985, he stopped when he married his third wife, Judith, who described him as gentle and a wonderful marriage. From 1985 to when he was caught in 2001, his numbers of killing was 10 or 11. So before he met her, he was just on a rampage. Then once he met her, it did slow down, but he was still killing people. So in 2003, he pled guilty to 48 charges of murder that the investigators could conclusively tie him to. The detectives believe he was born to kill and that his brain was wired different. 19 years after the first bodies were discovered, Gary Ridgway was sentenced to 48 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Before Ridgway was led away, the judge instructed him to face the victim's family and hear all of them and all of what they have to say. It didn't take the pain away for the families, but it helped them find closure. Linda Rule's father gave him forgiveness. It brought the courtroom to tears. The judge made him face the victim's family so that his last memory of the public would be the pain that he caused. So that's the story. Now, did you live in that area?
I lived in here. My grandparents lived up here, and my cousins and aunts and all that stuff. So they were, scared about it and all that kind of stuff. And my grandfather, because where he worked as a painter was PACCAR, which is Kenworths and Peterbilts and all that stuff. And my grandpa worked there probably about the same time that he did. And so there's a lot of people that probably knew him personally around, especially since he worked there. And like you're saying, I don't think. But there's a lot of serial killers that are like that too. They're not people that you expect, like the BTK killer and all that stuff. They're just not people that you expect. So it took a lot of years to find him because, like you're saying, he would do burn the scratches off, all that kind of stuff. And so for many years around here, it was kind of a whispered thing to any women that went out, to not, especially don't go over off of Highway 99, because you never know who's out there.
Yeah, I found that so strange too. And I think that's why a lot of people thought the police weren't doing their job, because they knew where he was getting his victims, but they still weren't able to catch him. Mm-hmm. But on the profile or on the thumbnail picture of this, I have a picture of him then and now, or then and closest to now that they can get. And he does look very, I don't think it's nice to say about a man, but he looks very wimpy. He doesn't look like he could cause harm. I could see why a girl would think, oh, if he does anything, I can defend myself when she would meet him.
Yep.
Or the fact that he had his kid with him some of the time that he did some of the abductions.
And he would use that to make them feel comfortable. Well, he's got a kid with him. It's not, can't be that crazy. Yeah, and there were some of the films where they showed the dramatized thing of he'd leave the kid in the car and go take them over to the camp or whatever and kill them and then come back to the car like nothing happened.
Yeah, I just can't. Ugh. And the burning up the roads. That I did want to talk about. I'll touch on that. You said if they could fully trace his life, likely there were signs in early childhood. They did say that he was a bedwetter all the way until high school, that his mother would bathe him even though he was in high school, so that was kind of strange. He did stab a kid when he was in high school. He went and got a kid from the elementary school and stabbed the kid and told the kid he wanted to feel like what it felt like to kill somebody. So I think he was born to kill. Do I think that some of the things that happened in his life, like if he would have had a completely normal childhood with which is impossible because there's no perfect situation, but maybe he would have had a chance at being normal, but I really don't think so with this type of crime. What do you think?
I think he may have had a better chance, but I think the way his brain was wired, there's something there that doesn't have that same empathy for other humans. I think is what he's lacking empathy for other humans.
Yeah, I think as soon as he was hurt in any way, that his brain would have just flipped and caused it to happen. Now, you said, I don't remember at the very beginning of this, did you say how they knew it was him?
Yeah. Well, from what the detective told me is he would always bury them a certain way, and he would always make sure to decapitate the victim. I don't know why. If he thought that they would come back alive or something, I don't know, but that's what he always did. So that's how they could tell his from other people. If there was other bodies dumped there or whatever, that's how they could tell that it was his. And so that's one of the things they didn't release because they wanted to make sure that it was him and not some copycat or whatever. But yeah, that's what he had told me. And as far as the cop coming after you, I wouldn't want him because he was like about 6'4", 6'5", so he wasn't a little detective either. But I was surprised at how he handled it because he not only was going after him, but dealing with the crime scenes and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole different thing, and so I think a lot of people get messed up dealing with that kind of stuff too.
I can't imagine having to go up and investigate one body, but then to pull up to these sites where he was putting the bodies, and there'd be 3, 4 women at a time, and young. These were young women who, one of them was pregnant, like very pregnant. You know,
I think there was a 12 or a 13-year-old that was one of them too.
It's just unreal. Nursing Our Travel Bug said, sounds like there's something wrong with how his brain was wired. Couldn't experience empathy. A real sociopath. Yeah, and if you guys get an opportunity to look at any of his interviews, they have some on YouTube. It's chilling how he literally talks about the stuff he did like he's talking about the weather with no remorse, no, like it's a normal everyday occurrence. This is what people do, you know.
It's like he's coming home from his job and telling you what he had to do that day, basically.
Burning Up the Road said, but remember, most abused people, even grossly abused people, don't grow up to kill. Exactly. You know, before I even started this, I talked about how we all suffer some kind of pain. We all have been through some really tough times in life. It's how you take that and deal with it. You know, how you move forward with it. You can move forward positively or negatively. You can hurt other people because you're hurting. There's all kinds of ways you can deal with that. And I think in this situation, I don't think his brain was wired even remotely correctly to be able to even try to deal with any of the pain correctly.
Yeah. And I think that the issues that he had when he was younger with his dad and his mom, all that did was help determine who he was going to go after and kill, probably. That's probably all that did.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I think you're right. You hit it nail on the head there. I think he was always going to kill someone. But his dad being with prostitutes and things like that, and the way his mom dressed, I think that just gave him a type. Char of Heart said, I think people are exposed in ways in childhood. Trauma can shut down parts of the brains of young children. That's true. Very true. And she said, I think it's more than just physical abuse they are suffering. It's over-exaggerated in his childhood till he felt grossed out about himself. And with the brain, there are random outcomes on rare. Yeah. More. Levels like the difference between how genetic diseases express themselves. That's true. There could be somebody who acts out and murders somebody in a fit of rage, but would never normally do that. Their brain broke for a moment in time.
Yeah.
And then there's people like this guy who.
Yeah, a serial killer is different than somebody that in the heat of passion does something.
So does anybody over here have any questions?
They all have questions.
Linda Barker said he got a double whammy, miswired brain and screwed up childhood. Very true.
Yep. And what was surprising about him was how long he was able to do it with all the technology that was out. Because if you look, a lot of the serial killer stuff stopped happening about mid-'80s into the 90s. There wasn't really that many anymore because it was too easy to get caught. So, you know, they can blame it on the cops all they want, but he was doing well at covering his tracks for so long. So.
Yeah, and it's still going to blow my mind that he kept going to the same spot to get his victims. So they knew where he was getting the victims. The police had been to his house. He was on their radar, and he still managed to pull it off that long. But he did take that break for a little bit when he got married.
Yep.
Oh, and his wife, on the interviews, my heart broke for her because she just had no clue.
Yep.
And I don't know, that's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, if you think about it from her side, you know, how would you deal with the fact if you married somebody and then found out there, you know what I mean? Because how do you deal with that duality in your head of this person that you love and treated you this way, and they're also somebody that was the person that savagely killed people?
Yeah, and she said he was like the best thing that ever happened in her life. That she had had rough times in her life, and when he came into her life, it changed it all and made it all better. And then to find out he was doing all of that, just can't imagine. There's one point she broke down and said, he could have killed me. He could have killed my children. He could have killed my grandchildren. You know, and I can imagine all those thoughts would start going through your head when you realize, you know,
Yeah.
I just can't. Banderella says, I hadn't had abnormal psych yet, but watched Dexter, so know why they do it. Dexter's a good show. Burning Up the Roads. In childhood psych class, I had to watch interviews with children under 12 that murdered. They were all obviously deviant and manipulative. They had no empathetic potential. That reminds me, I did see a show, Children Behind Bars or something like that was what it was called. And they had a boy on there, and they had his family, and it was like they'd interview the mom and talk to her, and then they'd interview the grandma, and then they'd interview him in jail. And he had murdered his sister or brother because the attention wasn't on him anymore.
Yep.
And the mom felt very conflicted because she lost a child. The child she had left was the one who killed the child. And then she went on with her life and had another child. And the one that was in jail could possibly get out of jail. And she said every time she talked to him, she felt like he was manipulating her to believe that he was okay. And she just had this gut feeling, no, if he got out, he would harm the other child she had. And so as a mom, she had to make a choice to tell somebody, hey, he's not okay. And the grandma believed he was fine. You know, the manipulation worked fine on the grandma. So it was kind of crazy to see how even the children at those young ages could manipulate so well.
Well, I mean, it's surprising, but if you had the mind to be able to do it, being in a child's body is probably the easiest way to manipulate somebody there is, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true, because they're so innocent. You think of them as so innocent. All right. I used to work, here we go. I used to work in the prison system, so I have seen some weird people in prison for sickening stuff. That is one job I would not be able to do.
No, that'd be hard to do.
Like, you have children so young that are really well behaved, but same family, you got lying and cussing children. Yeah. I mean, I had a really rough childhood. I was just talking to somebody about this earlier today. I had a really rough childhood, and I remember that I had a guard up at all times because I didn't want to be bullied or picked on. And so I had a very tough exterior, but on the inside I was very broken. So I think, again, though, like, I had a choice to continue down that road of being, you know, that tough exterior, don't mess with me, I'll punch you in your face type person, or changing that. And I wanted to change it so my children had better, you know, fix all the things my parents did and make it better for my children. So, again, I guess that comes to your genetics and the way your brain's made up and all of that.
That's surprising what Lily said, though. You see what Lily said?
Yes, it is strange to find out someone you love, led around your children, and slept beside you every night turned out to be someone that murdered a girl 6 months before you met. I consider myself lucky.
I think Lily has a story for you.
Yeah, it sounds like Lily might have a story we need to have her up here and talk about. Lily, let me know if you want to come up and talk about any stories.
Yeah,
we'll set it up.
That's definitely suppressing.
Yeah. I had an aunt that shot her husband, but he was abusive to her and her children. And she had been so isolated from everyone that she didn't have a way to, I don't think she felt like she could get out in any way, you know? And she ended up shooting him. He ended up paralyzed, not dead, and she just had to go get mental help. But I can't even imagine that situation. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I do see that there's different reasons for different things. That's something I'll always be able to look at situations and see the different levels or different reasonings.
Yeah. Well, and I think it helps you deal with life in general if you can take other people's situations and try to look at both sides. Like, what is that person thinking when they did this or whatever? It just helps you deal with people in general, I think, because you're able to react to how they're reacting better than just reacting yourself.
That's that old don't judge a book by its cover.
Mm-hmm.
And
or walk a mile in other person's shoes.
Mm-hmm. Charvehart said, due to being picked on, I turned to defending by causing bullies to face bullying. Tell them they use what bothers them is really what their issue is. Yeah. Yeah, Lily, I meant email me and maybe we can set up another time if you feel like it. Don't feel any pressure. No worse animal than man. That's true.
I'm just surprised that you hadn't heard about him after all the true crime stuff. You know, that was really shocking that you hadn't heard about
I
him.
know. When you told me about it, I started reading about it. Like, how have I not heard about this guy? I've heard about all the major, and he's like he is the major one in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I could not believe I hadn't heard about it.
Yeah. So for him, he doesn't even get to be a famous serial killer, even though he did all that work. So hey, that's how life goes.
And you know, him being as open and honest as he was helped the police in future investigations and things too, because they really got to explore his mind and the way that his mind worked. So, I mean, that's something positive that came out of. I always try to look for something positive in a negative situation, and I think that what he had done and how open he was with it helps police in their future investigations. So that is something good out of all of it. But
yeah.
Lily, I completely understand that. Always here if you need to chat, though. Just me and you if you need to chat.
Yeah, I don't. It's the duality that a lot of these, like serial killers and stuff are able to do is part of that psychology too, that they're able to separate. Because you know how, like you said, he passed the lie detector test. It's just he's able to split that, Gary the not killer from Gary the killer, and so part of that wiring and stuff like that manipulation, it's really, it's a talent. It's a bad talent to have to be able to do that, but it's definitely a talent. And so a lot of people are like, well, how could people not know? Well, if you're there next to that person, you know what I mean, and you're there in it, it's hard to see the forest for the trees. I'm sure there were people, if they were about 500 people, like some of the police officers that were investigating, I'm sure they were like, I know it's that guy. We just have to figure out how to get him.
I often wonder too if people like that can pass the lie detectors, that believe their own lies and all of that stuff, if if there is something undiagnosed, like multiple personalities, where they blank out and another personality kind of takes form and does the things, and I don't say that as an excuse to let them off, because if all those personalities are in one body, that one body belongs in jail.
Yeah.
I do wonder, though, if people that can pass the lie detectors the way that this man did and stuff like that, if he truly is blanking out and not fully, if it's one of a broken fragment of him,
It's always interesting to try to figure out the puzzle pieces to put together, and that's where I understand what you're saying. It's just interesting to figure out the psychology of somebody, like reverse engineer their thinking. Like, how could they possibly do that? How do we end up where we're at?
Yeah, growing up, I always, and this was so naive of me, but I always thought everybody thought the same way. We're all humans. We all think the same way. So for me, I always worried about hurting someone else's feelings. That would hurt me more than anything, is if I hurt someone's feelings. So I thought everybody else was like that, But then, like, I got to be an adult and started looking more into, like, the way the brain works and the different personalities and all these different things. And I was like, holy cow, I was mad at so-and-so because they didn't realize they hurt me. But their way of thinking, they didn't think what they said was going to be hurtful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that kind of got me really interested in psychology, was figuring out, like, oh, well, they didn't mean to hurt me. I just took it that way. Not everybody thinks the same way. And understanding that helped me really grow and develop as a person, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah. Well, and then that's also what fascinates you about people that have the broken brains too. Is the same reason. You thought everybody thinks the same way. Now you're so fascinated, like, how is people that far off track from me?
Yeah, and I knew people could have their own opinions on things, but I thought, naive of me, I thought the core of people were all very much like, look out for everyone else, take care of everyone else, like, because I devoted so much of my time taking care of everyone else's needs and mine were last. I thought other people kind of did the same thing, but not everybody thinks that way, and it's okay. But I didn't realize that. So let's see. Timmy Ray says, all we can do is pray for the person, BB. We can definitely pray.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
And Burnout the Rose said, these people are excellent at compartmentalizing. I probably said that wrong, but I know what that word means.
I think you said it all right. Close enough.
Lily, I'm sorry you know how that feels, Char of Hearts. I haven't told that often, and it seems like a lifetime ago and wasn't my life, but it was. Yeah, I can't imagine what either of you went through. My heart goes out to both of you. Have a good time at church, Lynn the Okie. So, finishing up the show here, what do you have coming up on your channel this week? Do you want to shout anything?
What do I have? Oh, goodness. I really wish I had was able to pull the calendar up. I don't remember offhand everybody I have, but I have a guest every single day next week, and all the way till the 21st as of right now, July, Monday through Friday. So I've got a lot of people coming up. I'll be on tomorrow taking over for Daydream Spot, and or not taking over for it, but he's doing his yard sale, so I'm covering for him. And but trying to remember who Monday I have Alice Ford, and she's a travel blogger. She's got 5,000 some odd subscriptions, so I'll be talking to her, and she does interviews and stuff like that. So I'll probably be chatting with her about interviews. But that's the next big one.
I was trying to look at our messages and see if I had any of your stuff coming up.
There's a few. I mean,
I
the
can't
follow.
say some of them.
Yeah. Well, the following week, or not the following week. I've got after July 9th, then it really starts taking off. I've got BJ Shea, who's a big radio show host here in Seattle. That's going to be doing an interview. Jason Crocker is going to be on. Oh shoot, I forget all of them. There's a bunch of them that are going to be on, but you'll just want to check out and subscribe. And if you're not there that live, that's fine. You can always listen later. So that's about it.
I also have to tell you, thank you for covering for me the other day.
No problem.
That was stressful and I couldn't get here. So I really appreciate you covering that hour for me. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
So you're really good about jumping in and filling in for people, or not just that, but you also spend a lot of your time on your channel shouting out other channels and devoting that to helping other people. That is like one of my favorite things about your channel is I find all these new people and how much you're wanting to help everyone else. So I really enjoy that.
And I enjoy doing that, and I really enjoy finding like smaller channels that already have like high quality stuff, because for them all it is exposure at that point. So if I can have some more people go and look at their stuff and enjoy it more, that makes me happy, because I know if I was under 100, I'm at 1,000 now, and it's a lot, but if I was at 100 and somebody 1,000 shouts me out, that's a huge deal. You know what I mean? So for me, it makes my day just as much as anything else to shout those guys out, because I know how they feel. Especially being on the receiving end myself recently. I know how it makes them feel. So it's always a pleasure to do that for people.
You do a lot of research goes into your interviews and stuff too. You taught Nettie how to research.
yeah, she was going through all that stuff, and it's like, I like to do that, because so many interviews, like TV and everywhere, it's a real superficial thing, and I like to find little nuggets of stuff that's funny or endearing about people and sharing those, so that when you go check somebody's stuff out, even if you don't necessarily like the first thing you saw, maybe you give something else a try, because you go, well, I liked them, let me see what else they have. So I like to do that. And it's depending on the person, like reading Wenner's book the other day, or a good chunk of it, that took more time than necessarily videos, but videos can take a long time too, just depending on how much content somebody has. So when I have an interview on, especially, it's sometimes good 8 hours to 10 hours of research in everyone that I'm going through, just because of going through videos and all that kind of stuff. And so, well, the live streaming part is easier video wise and editing wise and all that stuff. For me, it's just as much work, because I want to bring something to you guys that you can enjoy. I don't want to just, I really hate getting up there if I'm not prepared and I'm just talking or whatever. I hate, even though some of those days you guys like, I really enjoyed, the Q&A. I'm just like, oh, I hated that. I didn't have nothing prepared really. And so, but that's also part of, my psychology is, if I were to just sit and go, well, everybody likes it, I can just relax now, it would start showing. And so for me, all that does is make me go, okay, well, I've got to make sure that I maintain at least what I'm doing, and not try to make it better every time. And that's if any of you guys find something, like somebody comments and says, oh, I really like you're doing this, well, take that compliment and go, okay, that's awesome, but now I need to make sure I add more awesomeness to that comment. I want to respect people's time. I don't want to just have you tune in and just do it, because I'd rather have you actually enjoy what I bring. And so that's why I try to have so many different guests, because a guest one day might not be for you, but some other guest might be. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, you've brought some pretty awesome guests on already, and I can't wait to see what you do coming up, especially with everything so packed that you have going on. So I can't wait.
Yeah,
It'll be exciting.
And I'm excited for you guys to see, because I've been doing it, and just what I've already shown you guys, like, it's been hard to not tell you guys, like, a lot of the stuff that's been going on. Either because I don't have it exactly confirmed yet, or I just don't want to tell you guys yet. So it's exciting to show you guys. But just sitting in my seat now and where I'm doing it, like when I got the response back from the radio show host that I've been listening to for over a decade, and that I respect, and what he does in the business of radio, and that he's going to do it, that to me was like a huge, turning point. That to me was like, okay, not only, and I love all you guys, don't get me wrong, but when somebody that's been doing it that long says, I like your work and I'm going to come on and do an interview with you, that was a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, I get that. That's a compliment from somebody that you look up to, and that does a whole lot for the confidence in what you're doing. So
yeah. Not saying you guys are wrong. I'm just saying it's a whole different. It's whoever you enjoy the most. Let's say they said, I really like what your talent is. It would be like that.
Well, I really appreciate you coming up here today and doing this with me. I really, really appreciate it. And anyone that doesn't have Bob's AdVanture, but I'm sure you all do over there, go ahead and add him. If someone can drop his link, just in case there's anyone over there in the chat that needs to add him, I'd appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and drop you down now. But thank you for joining me.
Awesome. Well, I got to run anyway, so I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming in today and joining me. I have my RV Supporting Veterans shirt on. I've seen some of these already tonight, so I'm excited to see who else is wearing them so far. Char of Hearts, I seen your question about spooky stuff. We will get to that, I promise. I've got to gather up some people. If you have a spooky story and you want to share that with me, my email is beyondbeauty3, the word 3, @yahoo.com. And I'd love to hear it. And then maybe if you want to come on and share the story also, maybe we can start getting that kind of lined up to happen soon. But if we can drop, I think New Horizons is next, correct? If I can get somebody to drop New Horizons link, that would be great, because I think New Horizons is up next. And then there's other lives, of course. And then Gina Payne's birthday party is going to be on Meant to Be RVing's channel tonight. So if everybody wants to come join us there, it should be a lot of fun. Let me see if I can drop this link. I'm not seeing it just yet, and I don't want to go until I drop it. Oh, there it is. KNR got it for me. They are going live tonight, right? Yeah, I believe so. All right. Everybody head on over there to New Horizons, and I will see you all on Meant to Be RVing's channel tonight for Van Life with Gina Payne's birthday. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Wishing you much kindness and much love. Bye for now.